Hi everybody, thanks for joining me again today. It's Allison with the Everyday Scrapbooker, and today I'm sharing with you a layout. You can see all the pieces there piled on top of my layout base. I cut all of those with my Cricut, so there is a overlay that I'll be putting in the background. I cut home and I cut these adorable little houses. I'm just attaching the blue one together right now. It cut in 3 pieces, so there's the background there and then the part that lies over top of it, and then there's a little window that will go on it as well. I cut it from 2 different shades of blue cardstock, and then I cut the same house again a second time from 2 different shades of brown cardstock. All of the images that I'm assembling today and that I have cut was cut with my Cricut. I will include the cut file at the end of this video if you like the houses just as much as I do and you want to cut them yourself. So the reason I am cutting these houses is because the theme of this particular layout is going to be new home. So obviously houses fits the theme for a new home. No, we didn't move into a new home, but my father-in-law did. He moved into a lodge last spring. So, and I am just getting into last year in my scrapbooking right now. Inspiration for scrapbooking has not been easy to come by lately for me. Cards has really been my strong point recently. So I was pretty excited about having something different to offer you for a change. So I've got the 2 small houses put together, and now I'm putting a larger one together. I cut it from peach cardstock, and I flipped it over when I cut it with my Cricut so I could take advantage of the darker side of the cardstock as well as the lighter side. And I'm just putting all those pieces together right now. I'm using my liquid glass to glue the pieces together. I like using my liquid glass for intricate cuts like this. First, because it's a permanent bond. Once you slap those pieces of paper together, they will not come apart. And if you do try and take them apart, you're going to tear them apart. Secondly, I like using it because I like the precision of putting the glue exactly where I want it with the applicator tip that I have on my liquid glass. So now I'm just putting together my layout base. I have toffee cardstock, I think, in the very back, and then I trimmed down my white cardstock so there is a 1/2-inch border all the way around. This piece that I'm gluing right now, I cut with my Cricut as well. I cut it from sage paper cardstock, and I did the same as beforehand. I utilized both sides of the cardstock, the darker side and the lighter side. The inspiration for this die cut right here actually came from the picture that I'm going to be putting in this layout. Some of the siding, which you see right now, some of the siding in the lodge, the green portion to the right side of the entrance, has what looks like siding in it. And while I don't have an image that looks exactly like the siding in the picture, I thought this was pretty close and was really neat for adding some interest to my layout. When I sat down to create this layout, I was trying to think of a color scheme like anyone would do when they scrapbook. And I quickly decided that I wanted to stay true to the colors that were in the picture itself. Sounds cliche, right? Everybody does that. And so that's where the inspiration for the brown house that I'm attaching right now with the foam squares came from, and the green overlay background behind the picture. And then I tried thinking of colors that would coordinate really nicely with the neutrals in there. So that's where the blue and the peach came from. So I'm just using liquid glass again to attach home to the top of the layout. When I use my liquid glass, I usually just add little dots around whatever image I'm gluing instead of a steady stream of glue. I find it helps control how much glue you use, and then you don't have glue squirting out when you press down on it to adhere it. And I'm a big fan of using as little as possible to stretch the product as far as it would possibly go. And that's the second reason why I use little dots. So there, I've glued home to the top of the layout. I cut that from almond cardstock. All the products that I use in this layout will be linked at the end of this video as well. And here is the stamp set that I'm using to add just a little bit of a subtitle to the top portion of my layout as well. I found the phrase cherish this moment in the stamp set, so I'm going to stamp that just below home in sage ink just to pick up some more of the green that is in the background. And then once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and start embellishing my layout a little bit. I have some pine trees that I'm going to be adding around the houses because typically you would find trees and shrubbery and flowers and things like that in front of people's houses. I wanted to make it feel authentic, so that's where the pine trees and wood veneer that you see there comes from. Off camera, before I filmed this portion of the video, I actually played around with the pine trees that I had on my desk. They're actually saved for another project, so I ended up going back to my Cricut and cutting more pine trees. Just so I'm not using up something that was meant for something else, obviously. I really liked the way that it looked, especially paired with the wood veneer embellishments from the Hawthorne scrapbooking collection. I think they are originally intended to be arrows, some of the images, but to me, when I look at them, they look at trees. So I'm going to pair them with the paper trees that I cut from my Cricut. I also added some arrows, wood veneer arrows, to the title because I kind of feel like the title is unfinished. It feels pretty bare up there. So I'm going to go ahead in a little bit here after I'm done embellishing and add a little bit more to the title just so it doesn't feel so plain and blah. If you remember, I said closer to the beginning of my video that when you use liquid glass, it's a permanent bond. It's also ideal for adding embellishments like wood veneer, things that are a little bit more bulky and heavy and that you can't use your typical adhesive with. Liquid glass is perfect for items like this as well because it's strong enough to adhere those materials to your paper as well. Both pine trees were adhered with foam squares just to give it a bit more depth. And like I just mentioned, the wood veneer trees are going to be glued with the liquid glass just to ensure they stay put and they don't go anywhere. Journaling is always a huge part of any layout that I create. And typically when I include my journaling, it's always handwritten. I like being able to personalize my layout with my own handwriting. And I like thinking of it as leaving a piece of myself in each of the layouts that I create. With this particular layout, handwriting my journaling isn't really going to work because of the overlay that's in the background. It's just not going to go as smoothly as I would like it to. So I have started experimenting. I've just started doing this in the recent past with sometimes typing my journaling out on my computer. I throw some cardstock that I trim down to 8.5 by 11 inches and type it out and then trim it down into strips, and that's what you see me doing here. I love the look, especially when you pair it with the typewriter font. That's my default and my absolute favorite. So if you see any typed journaling in any of my layouts, it's most always going to be the typewriter font. So I've got all of my journaling strips cut out and I'm just arranging them now on my layout to make it all fit. It actually ended up being longer than I had originally intended it to be. So it takes up a lot more room than I had originally planned. But I really like the way that it looks and I absolutely love the finished layout when it is finished. It's not quite finished just yet. I could use my liquid glass to adhere the journaling strips, but I'm actually just going to use my tape runner to do that. I'm going to adhere them so that they overlap the photo just a little bit, and I can tuck them underneath the house and the trees as well below at the bottom of the picture. It really depends on the project that you're working on and what look you're going for. I decided in this particular layout to adhere the journaling strips unevenly, just to give it a little bit of interest and keep things from feeling too boring. So now all of the journal strips have been adhered, and I'm going back to my title at the top of the page and adding just a little bit more stamping and embellishing. I really felt that the top of my layout was too bare and it needed just a little bit more. So in the stamp set that I was using beforehand also has just a printed border. So I stamped that in almond ink, put it underneath Cherish This Moment, and then it has some leaves as well. So I stamped the leaves and then fussy cut them out and added them to the border that I stamped just a moment ago. I think I forgot to mention earlier that the pine trees that I cut with my Cricut, I cut from julep cardstock, which was another color that I added to my layout, which I originally hadn't planned on doing, but did, obviously. So to pull in more of that julep color, I decided to stamp the leaves in julep as well. So I was just showing you the stamp pad so that you knew that, and stamped those leaves on, as you can see, scrap white cardstock. I'll fussy cut them out and then attach them to the stamp border underneath the title. The trees and the leaves are perfect in my mind for this layout as well, because it really, in a roundabout way, kind of helps describe the area that we live in. It's a rural area, we're outside of the city, we're closer to nature, and there are lots of trees around, pine trees and deciduous as well. So I feel like the leaves and the trees are absolutely perfect for this layout as well. I wanted to overlap the leaves and cluster them together just to help give the title a more cohesive look. I really feel like the title and the entire layout is complete now. I'm going to add a little bit of glue with the tape runner to the one leaf, and then I think I use another foam square to add the second leaf over top, just to give it a little bit more dimension and depth as well. And yes, there's the foam square right there. If you've ever colored at all, you'll know how calming and relaxing it is. I feel the same way, totally think of it the same way. So I'm going to take my clear shimmer brush and color in the leaves and the pine trees and just give it a little bit more interest and definition and sparkle. This particular shimmer brush, the clear one, is my favorite of all the shimmer brushes that Close to My Heart carries. They do have a few. They all come in different colors, but I love this one in particular because you can use it on any color cardstock and any stamped image regardless of the color, and the sparkle is always going to show up. But it's nice to have a variety of colors as well so that it suits your needs in your crafting. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you find inspiration in the layout that I shared with you. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more videos like this, make sure you hit subscribe. And if you really enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would really appreciate that. I will include a list of all the products that I used in this layout at the end of the video, and I will also include the cut file for you. So if you'd like to use these images in your own crafting, you have the ability to do that. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you again very soon. Bye, guys.